we get our sense of self from external validation. So it's normal. I mean, we're going to, that's why some kids, they become perfectionists and they only get validation when they are perfect, or some kids only get validation when they shut down and when when they play small. And so there's a lot of different ways we get validation inside of our family system. And
Hold
we're
on,
just
Tony.
kids. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Holy shit.
So oftentimes in podcasts, right, we'll be listening to somebody talk and then there'll be just this fucking. So we only get validation when we play small.
Like, I've never heard that flip side of it.
Yeah. So it's like how you show up to get your needs met. So did I get my needs met by always being the person that couldn't do things and I needed my parent to rescue me? So then I felt good. That was the only way I got connection. Or was I the star athlete? And that's the way I got that validation. So, and it's why,
so I needed my parents to rescue me in order to feel good, in order to get validated.
Maybe that was the only time that they interacted with you. I mean, this is that part where, I'll go all the way back coming out of the womb. I mean, and right. I got a whole speech on this where we exit the womb. We don't even know we exist until we interact with another human. So from that moment forward, as a baby, we have to get our needs met. Now, when we're babies, we're cute, we cry, we poop, and people feed us and clean our diapers. But then when we get a little bit older, all of a sudden we can emote and speak, and now they're not. Well, that I must be bad. It must be a me issue. How do I get them to meet my needs? I'm going to jump up and down, juggle. I'm going to take care of my brother, or I'm going to break a window, because at some point I want to be seen, because I don't even know I exist until somebody acknowledges me. So that's how, in the therapy world, you'll often say that people will get there. They want attention, whether it's positive or negative. That sounds insane until you look at it from I don't know I exist until I interact with another person, and that person is typically going to be my parent. In larger family systems, it ends up being some of the older siblings. Or this is why the friendship dynamic becomes so important, because you happen to drop in with some friends, and that's where I get my validation by the things they do or that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to jot that down on a piece of paper, babe. We're gonna have to sit with that one.
Yeah, that's gonna.
Well, what's so interesting is, so then moving forward, this is where if I take that speech the rest of the way, then now as a kid, if I say, okay, I'd like to have cereal for dinner, or I would like a pony, and my parents say no, I do have a line where I say every kid is down. There's your little narcissist. The little kid is, because they only have a view of self, and they don't know. I mean, I don't even know what my dad did for a living until I still not 100% sure, even now he's retired. But my parents were apparently like interacting with each other. They didn't just like become animated when I walked in the room, which it seemed like as a kid. So now all of a sudden, if they were telling me no, then, and I think that's actually like the origin story of things like shame, where, well, they must not get the pony because I must be doing something wrong. Because when I was little and I asked for something, they would give it to me, but now they're not. So, man, what is wrong with me? I must be bad. And so in that scenario, then we go into adolescence, we go into our relationships, and we're so afraid that this person won't like me that then I'm going to try to become the person that I need to be to get that person to like me. So it's interesting. I'll do this with my hands, but I always say that we go into relationships and we become codependent and enmeshed, and there's just an acceptance there. Then as we start to go through life and we have different experiences, we now start to have different feelings and emotions. So we're becoming differentiated. Differentiated is where one person ends and the other begins. So we're codependent and enmeshed. We start trying to pull away and become differentiated, but then the other person's like, really? That's what you think? Oh, well, no, not really. We go back into that enmeshment. And so that's where, when you said earlier, and it was so spot on, when you become differentiated, in the middle of where one person ends, the other begins, is a lot of invalidation and a lot of discomfort, which is what typically keeps us jumping back into enmeshment, back into codependency. And because it does feel uncertain to then think, well, because people often say, well, why would I even want to be in a relationship if they're them and I'm me? And that's a story my brain tells me to keep me back into that enmeshment or codependency, because it's like growth through discomfort. And there's a philosopher named Terence McKenna that talks about, it's like jumping out into the great abyss and finding out that there's a feather bed, which is what it can be when you learn what that looks like or feels like to actually be myself, and my partner is themselves, and we don't have to manage each other's emotions, which gets back to, I'm glad. Okay. But then, so when now you are feeling differentiated, now it is perfectly okay to ask for things in the relationship. I mean, that's what we do, but you're coming from a place of not trying to manipulate, coerce, control, or get validation. So now I'm saying I have chosen me, and I would love if we could connect in this way, and now I'm putting that out to this other person. Now, if they say no, but I don't want you to get mad at me, well, it's like, well, I put this out there. You can say no. If I get mad at you, that's a me issue. Like, so I might have some feelings. I might be disappointed. That's part of the human experience. But I can deal with that disappointment and still maintain this connection with you. And when you can start to establish a pattern of safety, emotional safety like that, then the other person might be able to self-confront and say, well, why did I just say no? Why am I unwilling to take a look at this person's needs? Because they're not trying to, at this point now, to coerce, control, manipulate me. So then I get to look at myself. What is it about what they were asking that brought those emotions up in me? And that's where you really start to see intimacy, like real intimacy, not just, there's a phrase out there that we think we're wanting intimacy, but really we're just trading validation. But when we really can, it takes a lot of courage to really show up and let somebody know you, and a tremendous amount of courage to know who somebody else is, because that is going to be wading through a lot of that discomfort, and there will be disappointment. But yeah, you are allowed to ask for things in your relationship when it's coming from that place. So again, a lot of words there, I know, but man, we're hitting all the fun stuff today.
So much fun stuff. It's really challenging, the validation part, I think, because there's a part of me that, I'm getting better and better and better. Like we had a disagreement this weekend, and what I was continually trying to do was just identify the part inside of me that was being super triggered and activated.
Okay.
And I could almost, existentially, a lot of it was like parts work stuff, and going to that part and just trying to do my best to hear it, to see what they were expressing, see what they were feeling, and then just to validate that experience for that part of me. Yeah. But I found it to be so incredibly challenging to then come back out of that experience and back into our relationship and back into kind of like the soup that was being kind of stirred up and, created because of both dynamics playing out between both of us. And so there's a part of me that, I guess, and again, I don't know, right? I recognize completely as well that the version that Craig is today is so completely different than the version Craig will be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. But the version that I am today, there's a part of me that will always want validation. And I don't think that's necessarily a part of me that I want to get rid of. Like, like I'm always going to want to, at the end of the day, have Stephanie tell me that it's okay, that she still loves me, that, she's proud of me. Like that external validation, I guess I'm having a hard time.
Yeah.
I'm not quite to the point in my healing where it feels the same as the internal validation that I'm giving myself. Like the internal validation feels forced at times. It doesn't feel as soothing or as comforting as the really good, genuine, honest external validation that she'll give me. So part of me thinks, well, I need both. I want both of those things, right?
Yeah, and meeting you right where you're at. And I love this part where it's, and who am I to tell you, well, actually what you need to do is, because that's part of that journey. And who am I to say that somebody can't sit in that place and find happiness? Maybe my experience has been different. And this is what I love too, about going back to the things that we could talk about today. I often say that you can't. It's funny. I've realized lately when I say I often say, that's me wanting validation. I'm wanting people to know. I've been saying this for a while, you guys. I'm really smart. It's so, that part. We're talking on week 2 now, I think, of realizing that I've been editing it out of my podcast. What I said on a previous episode was, I'm like, nobody cares. Like, I know that I said this on a previous episode. That's kind of the vibe,
I said that earlier in this episode. I'm like, I'm with you. I'm like, okay, I hear that.
We were meant to be. We were meant to be. We were meant to